The goal is for us to be able to say, I can identify intersecting lines and planes. Remember, we talked a little bit about defining or talking about what points, lines, and planes were yesterday. So we are going to continue that conversation today with putting more things in it, with the new idea of intersecting them. Okay, but before we do that, let's go ahead and talk about the vocabulary, just to make sure we understand what the vocabulary was. Undefined terms, remember, these are basic concepts and geometry. Okay, remember these were the points, lines, and planes. They were the points, lines, and planes. These are just some examples of undefined terms. They are undefined because we don't formally have a definition for them. But instead, we describe and use them as foundations, as a foundation and a building block to be able to create those definitions. Okay, so these are ideas, these are terms that are so simple that we just we describe them, we use pictures to be able to illustrate what they are. Definitions or defined terms, these are whenever we are talking about an exact thing. Okay, we actually are going to be a little bit more precise with this. It's a definition tells us exactly what something means so that we can use it consistently in problem solving. Okay, we are told exactly what it means. There should be no misconception about what a definition means. Only thing that might get you on a definition is not knowing what came before. Okay, so we might put in some symbols. We might put in some stuff. So if you did not understand what the symbols mean, then we have issues with the definition. But definitions are made in a way that they are exact, they are precise. They try to make them so that they are short, sweet, to the point. Collinear, remember, these were points that are all on the same line. Okay, they all lie on the same line. So we have point A, we could have point B and point C on that same line. They are collinear. Non-collinear could be something like this. If we have this line, we have 2 points. Let's call this D and point E. Non-collinear would be this third point that is not able to be on that line, point F. So that's non-collinear. This is just review. Coplanar points. Remember, the plane, we draw it like a piece of paper. It's a flat surface. And coplanar means that all the points are within the same plane. So we could have multiple points. Remember, a plane, typically how we name a plane, is with 3 points. So if we put 4 points, that's whenever we start saying, okay, are these coplanar? So we can say that point A, B, C, and D, these are all coplanar because they're all within the plane. If we have a different plane, let's say it looks like this. Very similar. Let's say we have 3 points. This is plane X, Y, Z. And let's say we have another point out here. Call that point A. Point A is not coplanar to the other points because it's not in the same plane. Okay, that's just a quick review. New word, intersection. What does it mean for things to intersect? Well, best way of describing this is with a picture. So we are going to have a line. We're actually going to have 2 lines. And the intersection is whenever those 2 points or those 2 lines cross. So whenever 2 lines cross, we get a point. If we have 2 planes that cross, the intersection is a line. Okay? So an intersection is all the stuff that the object has in common. All the stuff that they have in common. These 2 lines have that 1 point in common. Just that 1 point. If we have 2 planes, let's go ahead and just draw out the plane so we can kind of see what's going on here. I'm going to do my best to draw out this plane. We are going to do that. Okay, so these two planes intersect, and whenever they intersect, that's the point that they have in common. And whenever they intersect, they actually intersect and make a line. The only points or the only spots that two planes have in common is with a line. So that is intersection, the stuff in common. Okay, remember we did example 1 and 2 yesterday. We did this in 2 parts. We're going to start with example 3. You could follow along in your textbook if you have your textbook. So we are going to draw and label a figure for each of the following relationships. So we're going to be given words, and we are going to be able to draw pictures using these words. We have plane K. Remember, we can use just one word to describe the whole plane, and we don't put a dot beside it. And plane P intersect along line M. Okay, well that kind of looks like what I just previously have drawn. So if we have this plane here, let's do this plane. Let's draw this plane over top. Do that. We will do that, and we will connect there. Okay, so line L is a point in common. I'm actually going to use white because white's going to pop out a little bit more. Line M is a point in common. And we know that plane K and plane P will be these planes. Okay, you could name the planes to be different. You could have this as plane P. You could have the other one as plane K. But the line M is going to be the parts that they have in common. So that is the first one. We're just going to draw pictures. Part B. This is a little bit more algebra, reminding ourselves of our algebra. Lines AB and CD. Notice. We didn't put the symbol over top. We didn't put the symbol over top because we said what they were. These are lines. It would be kind of ridiculous to say lines and then put a symbol of lines over top. Say lines AB. It would be redundant. So that's why we do not put the lines on the AB and CD, because we already said they were lines. We described them. These lines intersect at point X for whenever A is -4, 1, B is 4, 0, C is -2, -5, and D is 0, 5. On the coordinate plane. Okay, I gave us a coordinate plane. We also have that point P is collinear with, notice, we did not say line AB, so we use a symbol. This is saying line AB. Point Q is coplanar with all the previous information, but not collinear with lines AB and C. Let's draw a picture of this. We know we have some points. So let's put these points on the grid. We have -4, 1. This is going to be A. We have 4, 0. This will be B. Okay, and we are going to connect them. I'm going to use a blue line. We're going to connect those and draw a line that goes through. And we want to make the line extend to all directions. Remember, lines go forever. We also have C is going to be at -2, -5. So this is going to be right here. This is C. And we have D is 0, 5. And let's connect those. Let's use pink for this. Make it extend to the end of the plane. Okay. So we have line A, B, and C, D. We did the first part. We need to find out where point X is. Well, X is just the intersection, the point that they have in common. So this is point X right here. Line AB, CD intersect at point X, intersect at point X. We have the points for those lines. Point P is collinear with AB. It doesn't tell us where P has to go. So P can go anywhere on line AB, as long as it's on that line, because collinear means it lies on the same line. So we are going to have P. Let's put P down here, down in that area, at 10, -1. We are also told that Q is coplanar. So it's in the same plane, in the same XY coordinate system with all the previous information, but not collinear with either of these two lines. So because it's not collinear with any of these two lines, we can put it anywhere on this plane. So let's put, for the sake of it, let's put Q up here at -7, 8. And that's what that described. That would be the picture that goes along with this problem. Moving on, part C. Part C of this. We have plane K contains points A, B, C, line EF, and line GH. Remember, these symbols represent what's going on. We also know that line EF and line GH intersect at point P, so we have intersecting lines. Also, line L intersects plane K at point A. Okay, let's draw this plane. I'm going to draw this plane pretty big, just so we have a nice large representation of this. Let's suppose that this is our plane. Let's call this plane K, like it says. It contains points A, B, C. Okay, let's put points A, B, C on here. Let's say that this is A. Let's say that this is B. And let's say that this is C. Right there. We also know that lines EF and GH are on this plane and intersect at point P. So let's draw two lines that are inside this plane. So we have a line here, and we know that they intersect, so we can put a line here. Let's call this line, let's put some points on this line. Let's call this one EF, and let's call this other line GH. Okay, well, they intersect at point P, so let's put point P on here. This is point P, and then where they intersect. And we are also told that line L, intersects plane K, so it intersects this plane here at point A. So we have a line that goes through this plane and has to hit point A. So let's make this line look something like this. And typically we use dashed lines to indicate that it goes through so that we can visualize what's going on, because it's hard to visualize a three-dimensional object on a two-dimensional space. Because this screen here, that's a plane. We're looking at his plane right now, two-dimensional object. So that would be our visual representation of C. Moving on. Example 4. Ooh, we have a nice picture here. Use a figure to name each of the following. How many planes appear in this figure? That's part A. Well, let's look at this. We have plane, let me get my thing over here. We have plane P. We have plane K, which is this plane right here. We have this plane. So that's 2. There's actually a third one hidden. Notice right here, B, D, and C. Isn't that a plane? It shows a plane right here. These are 3 points that have stuff in common, so that would be a third plane. So how many planes do we have? We have 3 planes. Part B. Name 3 points that are collinear. Okay, well, let's just find a line that has 3 points on it. So, for example, let's look at this line right here. That line has 3 points. We have point E, we have point B, we have point D on that line. So we can say 3 points that are collinear, points, right? We're talking about points. We're going to use A. Nope, not A. We're using D, B, and E. By the way, these are not the only points that are collinear on this page. Could be interesting for you to find the other ones. Part C. Name the intersection of plane K and plane P. So these 2 planes intersect. Well, they intersect at at line X, right? We show a line X right here. that's where they intersect. So the point of intersection, or the line of intersection, remember, two lines intersect, they create two planes intersect, they create a line. Two lines intersect, they create a point. So where these intersect is at point, sorry, not point, I need to fix that, line X. And part D. Are points A, B, C, and D coplanar? And let's explain this. Okay, so A, B, C, D. We already know that B, C, and D is a plane. We already know that this is a plane right here. That is a plane. Well, 3 points are on the plane. We just need to check to see if A is also in that same plane. Here's how we know. If we have a 4th point that lies on one of the lines that is part of the other plane, it's coplanar. Okay? If point A was not on the line that is joined together in that plane, then it would not be coplanar. But because A is on the line that is part of this plane, it is coplanar. So we can say yes, these are coplanar. Our explanation, A is on one of the lines that is part of the plane. Okay? And this is our last question. Are points B, C, D, and H coplanar? So let's find B, C, D, and H. Well, we already have highlighted or marked in B, C, and D. That's a plane. Is point H on that plane? Well, is point H on one of those lines that is connected to that plane? No, it's not. So we say no, point H is not on one of the lines of the lines connected to the plane. And I'm sure you guys might be able to come up with another explanation for that as well. But the main idea is that the point is not part of one of the lines that makes the plane up, that makes the plane. So that is the end of lesson 1.1. In this lesson, we talked about being able to identify intersections. We talked about being able to draw pictures with this information and label. We talked about our definitions from this chapter, and hopefully by the end of this, you will be able to confidently say that I can identify intersecting lines and planes.